And today we're going to do a review on the Serpent BF. That's the RDA with the bottom feed squonk. This little bad boy on here. I'm running it today on the nudge. So the Serpent BF is from Wotofo, as is the nudge, so the two of them complement each other very well. It's a 22mm RDA with the bottom feeder squonk pin. Let's go down, have a look at the features, do a build, do a wick, and we'll come back up top and have a vape. So first off, let's have a look at the Serpent BF packaging. It's got this nice snake-like design across it. They're all the usual stuff, all your safety warnings and the contents of the box. In the box you do get a user manual. Sorry, mine's had a little spill of liquid on there. A few images through it just showing the contents of the box, the single separation, how to fit the coils, how to wick, and all the usual. It's not a bit in-depth user manual. It does seem big, but it's got multiple languages there. You also get 3 packets within the box. First one contains some cotton. The second one contained 3 alien coils. I've already used 2 of these, so this is the remaining coil I have. And the third pack also contains all your O-rings and spare grub screws. Also in the box you get a 510 drip tip adapter in Ultim and also a 510 drip tip stainless steel to match the RDA. And here's the Serpent BF RDA. Fitted with the 810 drip tip at the moment. At the bottom it does say Serpent BF and Wotofo, and it's pre-installed with a squonk pin, logo on the front there, and air slots around the sides. We'll have a look at them a bit closer in a moment. To open, you push on the pin and the entire section comes up. Here's the airflow section. You got 2 slots for airflow. And to remove the drip tip, you actually push from inside because it is quite a tight fit, and then you can take off the drip tip and the adapter will fit there. The next section we're going to have a look at is the bucket section. So the build deck comes out of the bucket section, and here it is. It's just a straightforward section, kind of like a bucket. It's got your 3 airflow slots on it and the logo at the front, and the build deck just sits inside there. Now the build deck, I've got in there the silicon plug for single coil mode, so you can see where that goes, and it just sits in one of the juice wells. So we'll just pop that out and we can have a look at those juice wells. They are quite shallow, and you got a standard 2-post design. So I've got the build deck now on my ohm meter. That's just because I like to build on my ohms meter so I can get readings as I'm going. Coils I'm going to be using today are spaced 5-wrap 22 gauge Canthal. It's just something I use quite often when I'm doing these builds. It works quite nice and comes in at a good reading for these. So it is a little bit fiddly working on this deck. There's not a huge amount of space to work with, and you do want to make sure that you're missing the edge of the juice well there. It is quite a tight deck to build on, so and not the easiest to get everything in place and straightened up. There's not a huge amount of space to work with. So we'll get this first coil installed, get it tightened down nice and tight, and once that's tightened up, just straighten her up a wee bit, make sure that she's in the coils in place, not touching any edges, not touching the posts, and in a rough position of where the airflow is going to be able to hit it nicely. So you just check it against there. Once it's in place, we'll trim the ends of the coil, so trim off the tails there. So we'll just get them cut in with the snips, cut them really close to the posts because you do have another coil to go in on the other side. So get them as close in as you can when you're doing the cut, and we'll just take a reading here. So the reading is coming in at 0.33 ohms, which is a nice place to be on one coil. That means that when we put the second coil in, it should read in the region of 0.17, 0.18, in that sort of range. So the second coil goes in. Now the second coil is going to be harder to install because one of the tails is going to be going under the first coil, so it's going to be a bit awkward to get that cut. So I'll get this one in and tighten down. So nice and tight, nice and tight. And we'll do a bit of an adjustment on the coil. So I'll just get it straightened up, and looks like I've put that in a little bit too far there, so I'll just loosen it up and pull it back a bit. So it's just a little bit too close to the posts on one side, so I'll just pull it back a bit. There we go. And tighten it down again. So nice and tight in there. And tighten up, tighten up, tighten up. And just level it off again, make sure it's sitting in a good position, not touching any of the edges, not touching the posts. And that's fine. And just check from the other side, just adjust. And now you make the cut. Now the first cut's a nice easy one, once again close into the post. And the second one I'm going to do off camera because it is really awkward and you've got to lift the coil to get underneath to make the cut. So I'll get that done. Okay, so now I've got the second cut done and we're back on the ohm meter and we're coming in at 0.16. So got it all adjusted. So next thing I need to do is make sure that she's heating up okay on a device. So what I tend to do here is use a regulated device instead of an unregulated one. So I'm going to be using my Wismec RX200. This is usually my go-to, running at about 45 watts here, just doing a quick heat up. And just need my pliers, just give it a quick rub, straighten, so we all know how this works. If not, leave a comment below. And she's starting to heat up good, so I'm just going to do some adjustment off camera and get this all heating up evenly. And then I'll let her cool down. So there we go, she looks pretty good. So it's been a couple of minutes, I've let it cool down. We're all heating up levelly now, so now we need to wick. Now, I usually do the Scottish roll technique with my cotton here. I like the cotton pads, I roll them and I wick them. So you can see that I've got one end quite tight on here so that I can pull it through, and I tend to pull through extra on the end that's been tightened. These are all going to get cut off anyway. And you'll notice when I put the second one in that I do take it from the other side. So this is just something that I've always done when I'm wicking. If I'm doing one way, I will do the other one the other way. Just go with the wrap of the coil. It just makes it a bit easier for feeding the wick through, and also makes it a bit leveler when you're cutting them into the juice wells. You'll have one that's a bit fluffier than the other, and it just makes it even for when you're wicking. Now for the cut on these, you do want to make these quite short because those juice wells are not very deep. So you do want to cut pretty much at the edge, a couple of millimeters over the edge of the juice well there. So you see where I've got them where I'm cutting them just here. When I move my fingers, you'll be able to see. There we go. So you can sort of see where I'm making the cut. One more cut. And there we go. So just get my tweezers here and we'll fluff these out. Always fluff out the ends of your wicks. It just makes it easier for juicing them up. You want air pockets in your wicks because they will then fill with juice, and when you're wicking it works a lot better pulling the juice up. So once we've got these all fluffed out, we'll just get them popped into the wick holes. So that's one side nice and fluffy now. We'll do the other side just as fluffy. And what I like to do with this is just fluff them up the way so you can see all that fluff ready there, and just pull off any excess that's coming off. Don't worry too much, you're not going to lose all the cotton. You do want those air holes in there to cause the wicking to take place. Then we just pop these down into the juice holes, into the cavities. Like I say, they're not very big, so you do want to leave quite a bit of space in there for the juice to well up. But they are quite small wells on this. Once again, it is a 22mm, so it's not a big RDA that we're dealing with today. It is quite a small one. So we'll get it popped in there. And there we go, there she looks good. Now what we'll do is take her off the ohm meter here, and we'll pop her into the bucket section. When we do this, we want to line up the coils with the two airflows. So just get the coil there so you can see it through. Keep in mind that once the wick is moist, it will move. If you need to adjust, just use your multi-tool like that and adjust it up using the tool in one of those holes to adjust. Make sure there's a bit of a gap there for the airflow to come through. Pair off using your tweezers, just make sure there's still a gap. Make sure the coils are not touching anywhere on the bucket as well, just to make sure that's not happening. Then we'll pop this onto the mod. Mod I'm going to be using for this is the Nudge from Wotofo, the squonk mod. Here she is. Did a review on this already. I'll put a link on that either at the beginning or at this point in the video. Now we'll screw her on. Make sure she's pointing in the right direction. So you'll have the symbol at the front, the two airflows, and you see that they're pointing pretty much directly on. So we'll just squonk. Now with this RDA, you do have to be careful with the squonking. It can over squonk very easily through those air vents. The juice wells are not deep. If your squonk bottle is full, one good solid squonk and it'll come straight out those air holes there. But a couple of squonks, and look, our cotton's already pretty well saturated. We'll just fire her up. And there we go, we get a nice little burst off her there. And one more squonk. Another quick burst. Yeah, she's looking good. Looking ready to vape. One more squonk just to be sure. And yeah, that's a nice burst. So we'll get the top cap on now. We just want to line up the air vents, the air holes with the air vents there, just so we've got nice full airflow. It is quite restrictive airflow, so we want full airflow on this. And I'm going to use the Ultim 810 drip tip on this one. There we go, and she's ready for a vape. So there we go, that's all set up, and she's running pretty well. I'm getting some nice flavour off her there. She does give good flavour, although the airflow is very restrictive. It is quite hard to adjust the airflow. You'll notice some beveling at the top of the airflow section here. The only way I found to do it is to push down, and then you can adjust the airflow. You can kind of see there, which is not easy. They do say that you can use this as a standard RDA. There's no RDA pin included. It's only got the squonk pin, but they say there's no leakage with that. The only way I can figure this out is if you take the drip tip out, and then you can drip onto there. The top section doesn't come out unless you do the bottom push with the pin there. It's a good design for squonking. It's not a good design as an RDA. You also find that you do get quite a bit of spit back from it if you over squonk. You notice when I was squonking it up to fill it, the juice was going right across the top of the posts. That causes spit back. If you over squonk, because of the low profile and the low air holes there, it will leak. So it is a very small RDA. There's not a lot of space in there. The juice wells are really shallow, so you got to be a bit careful with the squonking. You don't over squonk. It's very easy to over squonk this when your juice bottle's full, but you do get used to the amount. Very restrictive, but that restrictive airflow gives so much flavour from it. Because it is also a low profile one, you're very, very close to those coils, and it does give spit back. It does give a lot of heat coming through as well, so you find that after a few draws on it, it does heat up a lot. What I've actually done is stopped using the 810. I do prefer the 810 on RDAs, but for this one it does get a bit hot. And what I've actually done is I've taken that 510 adapter and I've stuck a black plastic 510 in there, as opposed to the stainless steel one that comes with it. Using the stainless steel one, it just gets too hot to actually use. Unfortunately, this does cause yet more restrictive airflow because you've not got as much, but it is a lot easier to use constantly in this mode. I also think it looks a lot better with that black on the top with this mod. It does sort of sit there quite well and fits well with the black nudge here. A lot more restrictive, but that flavour is all there. Oh, you're getting so much flavour from it. You're so close to the coils that flavour is just coming through. So, advantages. Well, I'm gonna have another vape first. Okay, so the advantages, that flavor, can't really come close to that. That is a really strong on the flavor. Something like the Pulse or the Athena, they come pretty good close on this as well, but because it is a low profile RDA, and because of the restrictive airflow, you do get some very thick flavor from there. If you're an airflow hog, you're not going to like this. It's very little. It is a very restrictive airflow. Even wide open, it's restrictive. When you're running it in single coil mode, there's an option to use just one airflow, the one at the back there, which is currently closed off. I've actually found when running it in single coil mode with the silicon stopper in there, to still run it in dual coil airflow. So the airflow is coming from both sides. What would actually be good is if you had an airflow slot through that silicon stopper, but with the airflow open on both sides, even in single coil mode, the air still gets around that stopper, so it's still pretty good. That stopper also closes off half the juice well, which is limited at the best of times, so it's not really that good in single coil. I wouldn't really run it. I did it just to test it out, see what it was like, but I'd prefer to stick it in the dual coil mode and use the 510 on it. The flavor is what makes this. It is a 22mm, which is another good thing. Devices like the Nudge, if you see my review on the Nudge, this, because of the design of the Nudge, it will only take 22s comfortably. If you put a 24 on here, you get overhang, so it does sit nicely on this device, as it does on other 22mm devices. It is definitely a smaller one, so that's pretty much it for the advantages. Oh yeah, the price point. This only sent me back £15, so price wise it's really good on the price point. The Nudge was 20, so 35 quid for this entire setup, and that's comparative to the Athena, to the Pulse. It's a little bit cheaper than both of them, so as a cheap squonk mod, it is a complete set. That's £35, that's not a lot, so that's a good bonus there if you want to go cheap and get a decent mod for your money. Disadvantages, there are quite a few, unfortunately. It is a really fiddly deck to build on. There's not a lot of space to work with. The juice wells are really shallow. There's not a lot of space in there. It's really awkward to get the build just right so it's not touching anything. I've had a couple of times I've tried to build on it and I've got shorts because it's touching the edge of the well, it's touching the edge of the bucket section, and it's not really that easy a deck to build. With the dual post design, could have been a bit better, because when you're trying to get that second coil cut, it's really hard to get in there and get that snip in, so it's not the easiest to build on. Wicking is a bit tight for the wicking as well, so these are all cons. The airflow, really restrictive, really tight airflow. It's right on the coils if you get them leveled off, so it's bringing that air straight into the coils and straight up, so it's bringing all that flavor through, but there's really not a lot of room to deal with it. The airflow is also very low, and the squonk comes, when you're squonking, it comes straight up the middle and it comes quite high, so it's very easy to leak when you squonk. They say it can be used as an RDA dripper. I don't see how. It's really hard, and now I've got the 510 in. It's like, take the 510 out, drip, then you're dripping straight on your posts. You're not actually dripping onto the coils, and you can't take out the top section without taking the entire RDA off and pushing the pin up. So it's not ideal for that. It's really just a squonk RDA. It's really just for the BF with the bottom feed, so it's not for anything else. I wouldn't use it for anything else. I would only use it as squonking RDA. So whether that's a positive or a negative, that's up to yourself there. I would say that's kind of in the middle of the road there. If you're looking for a squonk RDA, then yeah, that's fine. If you're looking for an RDA for dripping, don't even bother looking at it. It's not worth it. It just wouldn't work. Overall, it's not bad. I've used better. I've got better. But for the price point and for the way it looks and runs with this, it is still pretty good. It's pretty much middle of the road. It's nothing spectacular. I'm not jumping overjoy with it, but I do like it. I do like using it. If it was my last device that I had, or if this broke and I had to run out and get another one, would I? No. The other options out there are a lot better. Although that flavor does give you, that flavor production definitely does make up for it. It's given the flavor, it's great. It's not a cloud chucker by any sake. A fairly decent cloud. And it is a really dense cloud as well because of that restricted airflow. But because of that restricted airflow, she's not a chucker. That's pretty much it for this review. Overall, it's about a 50-50. She's not the best, but she's by far means not the worst. That's it for the Serpent BF. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Any questions, leave them in the comments. Follow my channel. I do daily vlogs. I do reviews on vape gear. I do vape questions. All my videos are on the channel there. There's a whole lot of other stuff that you can go have a look at. Follow me on Twitter. That's @1purplemongoose. That's @1purplemongoose. And